The Raiders continue to make some roster moves in preparation for Week 11 Monday Night Football versus the Dallas Cowboys. Plus, we continue salute to service. That plus more on Wednesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for November 12th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome here, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now your number one sports podcast network, period. Really proud to be able to say that. Really proud to say that this show grows each and every day, even when the Raiders are struggling. 2-7 so far on the season. Love the fact that Raider Nation continues to support the show, so we definitely appreciate you wherever you find it. If it's wherever you find your favorite podcast, or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, we appreciate that. We appreciate my man Ari, who does a great job each and every day making sure we look good and sound good, and that takes a lot of work. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254, and we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you at 707-654-4693. As you can imagine, we've had a lot of different calls, a lot of different texts, a lot of feedback about a bunch of different subjects, so we'll try to get as many in as possible as we close out the show. Segment number 3. Segment number 2, went inside the Raiders locker room on Tuesday. That was Veterans Day, and I went into the locker room with one purpose only, talking to a couple players that grew up in military households. So I had an opportunity to catch up with Landon Roberts, Raiders middle linebacker, and, of course, Ashton Jeanty as well, rookie running back, both those guys. And the Raiders have multiple guys that have military backgrounds, went to school, or just, like I said, grew up in a family, and I think that that's awesome. But that was the sole purpose of going inside the locker room on Tuesday on Veterans Day. So you'll hear from E-Rob and you'll hear from Ashton Jeanty in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day, and it really has to do with the Raiders and the roster moves that they made official on Tuesday. We'll jump right into that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So let's go ahead and get into the roster moves. The Raiders made official that they signed linebacker Jamin Davis to their active roster from their practice squad, and then they went and placed guard and center Jackson Powers-Johnson on IR. They also signed kicker Greg Joseph to their practice squad. Now, we'll start with the obvious. Jackson Powers-Johnson, talked about him on Tuesday's show, knew that he was going to go on IR, knew he was going to miss at least 4 games, and there's a good chance he's going to miss the whole season. And I'll tell you right now, seeing him in the locker room on Tuesday, seeing him with the cast around his leg on Tuesday, and seeing one of his teammates trying to help him get a plastic bag onto his leg so he could take a shower and protect that leg, kind of gave me the idea that he's not coming back anytime soon. Now, I'm not a doctor. I have not been staying at a hotel where I could diagnose any kind of medical situations, but just looking at him and just looking kind of at his body language, does not look like JPJ will be returning anytime soon. And you know what? That might be good at this stage of the game. If I'm the Raiders, I don't rush Kolton Miller back either. Right? I mean, again, you kind of know what this season is already. They're 2-7. Let some guys get some burn, see what you have, and let those guys get fully healthy. Right? I mean, I don't think that there's all of a sudden going to be some big turnaround and the Raiders are going to go and rip off 7 games in a row winners because they got, Kolton Miller back, right? I think that they need to take their time with those guys, and very easily could see them miss the rest of the season. But that was the one that we knew was going to happen. Jamin Davis, they signed him. He was on the practice squad. He's a former first-round pick, number 19 overall by the then Washington football team in 2023. He pretty much balled out for Washington. He led the team in tackles, had a few sacks, a couple fumble recoveries, and then in 2024, they moved him to defensive end. And he's really been basically a journeyman ever since then. Hasn't really had a lot to show. So, again, just another guy that's going to be added to the active roster. Will he be a special teams guy? Will he get out there defensively? We'll find out sooner rather than later. But he has been added to the 53-man roster. And then this was the one that was intriguing, the fact that the Raiders signed kicker Greg Joseph to their practice squad. Joseph's been in and around the league since 2018. Practice squad, active roster, practice squad. Let's put it like this. He's been on 12 teams in 6 seasons. Again, 12 teams in 6 seasons. Right now, he hasn't actually played a game for all 12 teams, but he has been at some capacity on 12 teams in 6 seasons. From 2021 to 2023, he was actually the Vikings guy, playing in all 17 games, all 3 seasons, and basically a career 80% field goal converter. Look, the thing about Greg Joseph that you need to know, and there was actually a talent evaluator in the NFL that said this, he's got a really strong leg. He doesn't have really a good control of his leg. So he has the strength, so he can kick one. I believe in 2023, he kicked a 61-yarder for the Vikings, but he doesn't have real control of wherever the ball is going. So again, he's just a journeyman guy, but we know what that's about. it's a little bit of desperation. It's a little bit of lighting a little bit of a fire under Daniel Carlson because he has been on the struggle bus. We know that his percentage as far as conversions on field goals has been going down really, I would say, since 2021, 2022. Around that time, you started to see Daniel Carlson start to just decline a little bit. And so that's something that's concerning. He's a guy that is in a contract year. I know how those could be. Sometimes you start thinking about it, you get in your head, and I think that has something to do with what Jacoby was doing while he was a member of the Raiders as well, right? Being in a contract year, it's almost one of those, everything you want to do perfectly because you don't know if it's affecting the outcome of if you get an extension or not. So I can understand that being in his head. Obviously, the Raiders extended AJ Cole in the offseason during OTAs and mini camp and training camp. That's when they got his deal done, but they did not sign Daniel Carlson. And I do believe he's a guy that's going to have to earn it. I would not be shocked if after the season is wrapped up, they're looking for a new place kicker. It's not going to be Greg Joseph, but Greg Joseph has been added to the practice squad, if for nothing else, to be out there, be competition. And if Daniel Carlson continues to miss field goals, could definitely see him, maybe being added to the active roster and something going on with Daniel Carlson. But I do think that is probably a blank moment, right? Not a this is what's going to happen right away. I think they're going to try to give Daniel Carlson every single opportunity that there is to make sure that he maintains that kick and roll throughout the rest of the season. But just in case, right, in case of emergency break glass, that's what Greg Joseph will be around for as far as I'm concerned. So they are back out there on the practice field on yesterday. They won't be on the practice field today. They'll be back at it on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then, of course, they play the game against the Cowboys coming up Monday Night Football. Coming up in segment number 2, Veteran Day Tribute rolls on. I shouted them out on Tuesday because it was Veterans Day, but wanted to make sure I got into the locker room and talked to a couple players that grew up in the military families and, just kind of how that helped shape their lives. So our salute to service rolls on. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to let you know about one of the great sponsors, and that is Betterhelp. As the days get shorter and the nights come earlier, it can start to feel a little heavier, especially when life is already packed with work, family, and everything else. This season, it's so important to reach out and check in with friends, family, or even yourself. Just like checking in on a teammate or reconnecting with someone you haven't seen in a while that can lift your spirits, reaching out for therapy can also make a real difference too. BetterHelp makes that first step easier by connecting you with a licensed therapist online from wherever you are, right? You could talk things through even for a few minutes. It will help clear your head. It'll help clear others' heads. It's something about being able to talk it out and speak out loud. It makes a huge difference. Over 5 million people have used BetterHelp, and with 30,000 therapists available, finding support really is just a few clicks away. This month, don't wait to reach out. Whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself, BetterHelp makes it simple to take that first step. All listeners of the Locked On Raiders podcast get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/LockedOn. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. Because taking that step towards support might just leave you wondering, why didn't I do this sooner? All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Shouted out to veterans on Tuesday on Veterans Day because, well, got to do that. Want to make sure that that's something that we never forget, never underestimate how important our veterans are, and obviously our active military as well, and even the ones that we lost. But wanted to make sure, since I had an opportunity to get into the Raiders locker room on Tuesday, that I talked to a couple of players that grew up in the military household, and that was my sole purpose for being there on Tuesday. Like, there's a bunch of different things I could have talked about with these players, including the game coming up on Monday. But as I'm looking at the calendar, looking at the schedule for being in the locker room, realize, you know what, the most important thing right now is to find a couple of players that have grown up in these military households and talk to them about that, the importance and how that helps shape who they are today. And one of them was Ashton Genty. And I mean, his story has been well documented, knowing that he's grown up in the military household. I've actually talked to him about that multiple times throughout the course of the draft process and even after the Raiders drafted him. And the one thing that was unfortunate is, like I said, I went in with this game plan. I was telling Vinny Bonsignore, this is what I'm going to do. I know Ashton's speaking to the media at the podium on Thursdays. I'm going to try to grab him just for a couple minutes, real quick, just to ask him about Veterans Day. And then I'm going to go and ask Landon Roberts about Veterans Day as well. So I went and talked to E-Rob first, and that went really well. And then I saw Ashton Genty. And of course, whenever there's a bunch of media members around and they see Ashton Genty or a star like him talking to somebody in the media, they're all going to hustle over. And that's the one unfortunate thing, just being 100% transparent about how the locker room goes down. Myself, Vinny, Adam Hill, we're all very active when it comes to Paul Gutierrez, very active to asking questions. And then there's a big huddle around us of cameras that don't really say anything, just film everything. And then they go onto the TV and they'll play that audio that we ask the questions. They'll play it on the TV, just because you obviously people want to hear from these players. And so I was trying to do it really quickly so he didn't get, a big crowd around him. Well, you can imagine I failed. I failed. So I felt bad. I had to double back after I was done talking to him. Say, hey, man, my bad. I didn't mean to get a big crowd around you. Just want to get a couple thoughts, when it came to Veterans Day from you. So he was real cool about it. So no problem. But it's definitely not what I intended to do. And like I said, he's going to be speaking at the podium on Thursday. So really we shouldn't have been talking to him in the locker room. But it was Veterans Day. So I thought, well, why not? So here's a quick minute or a minute and a half or so with Ashton Genty on Tuesday on Veterans Day in the Raiders locker room. Here in the locker room with Raiders running back Ashton Genty. And Ashton, just wanted to grab you for a couple minutes and talk about Veterans Day, knowing that you come from a military family, you have that background, you've been all over the world. What does this day mean to you?
Yeah, it means a lot for sure. I have a great appreciation not just to my dad, but, everybody who's, serves the country. They do a lot to make our lives better, and, everybody should, have some appreciation for that.
How has that shaped your life, and just when you're going through trials and tribulations or any kind of adversity, just being able to lean on that background you have?
Yeah, I watched my dad do a lot of hard, tough things in the military, and, he rose to, each and every occasion and, continued to work hard and, level up. But, no matter what we got going on in this, football world, there's nothing like what they got going on.
Does that help clear it up a little bit? Realize, kind of humble you sometimes? Like, hey, man, there's a lot of other things that's going on besides just a football game.
Yeah, I think, you can always look at, what's going wrong or, just be in your own bubble. But, when you have gratefulness for, something else, like that takes away whatever you think you might be suffering, and like having appreciation for others or just anything, just being grateful for, it'll take you off your own stuff and like your own selfishness.
Well, tell Pops thank you for me. Appreciate it.
Sure.
So there you go. I don't know if you could tell, but there all of a sudden became a bunch of cameras around Ashton. I was like, dang, I got him. I tried to, kind of put my back to everybody so they didn't see me, but man, it's hard in the locker room, man. It's hard to kind of hide from a quick interview going on. And so, like I said, I definitely felt bad that I hemmed him up like that, and he got stuck for a couple more minutes with media members, knowing that wasn't really his day to talk. But that was a couple minutes with Ashton Genty. But Landon Roberts, who I've created a really good relationship with the time that he's been with the Raiders, and, actually got to talk to him a lot during training camp, met his family in training camp, and his pops, served our country and fought in wars. And man, he has a hell of a story. So when I caught up with E-Rob, it was some really good stuff, and his locker is in the very back of the locker room. So nobody saw me. I was able to hide in this one. So a little one-on-one action with Raiders middle linebacker Landon Roberts. Here in the Raiders locker room with linebacker Landon Roberts. And I just wanted to get you for a couple minutes just talking some Veterans Day. And I know you come from a military family. What does a day like today mean to you?
It means a lot, because them guys and their families and, they've been sacrifices since they went into the service. And no matter how they served us, they was in the service. So, I always want to tip my hat off to the veterans. Obviously, my dad did 25 years of Army, but at the same time, man, obviously he was in the war, but you don't have to be in the war or go to the war to be represented as a veteran. Just you putting your time and your efforts and your family on the line to serve our country, protect our people, is huge. And when this day come up, I just don't take it for granted. I text my dad this morning and told him Happy Veterans Day. My uncle's long line, my grandfather was in the service, so it's near and dear to my heart. And when it comes to the brave souls that's out there that continue to keep our country safe and continue to hold the standard where it needs to be held, man, I tip my hat off to them, and I do whatever it takes to make sure I'm not disappointing them in no way.
What was it like when your pops came back and then showed up at your practice and you looked up and was like, Pops is here?
Yeah, it was crazy, man. It was the first day of practice, but it was the first day of like practice when it came to like pads.
Okay.
So it was the first day of padded practice, man. And he was back. He was back from the war. I think he had just got back from, because he had already did Iraq. He had Afghanistan, and he made it back, man. It was just like it was dope. It was dope to see and whatnot. And I just see how much since he's been back, he retired after he got back. I think he did like one more year, then he retired. But you see the what he had to go through from a standpoint of just to get back normal in a way.
Right.
Adapting to back into America by just being out there and making sure that our country is safe, because he was a master sergeant, but he was on like communication side of it. So he did a lot of communicating and stuff like that. And they had to do a lot of tours. So, I just like him and his crew. I tip my hat off to them guys. But like I say, the whole service, I don't care if you just fix the food every day.
Yeah.
I appreciate you because you kept the soldiers that was out there in the field ready to go.
How much does that kind of translate to what you do as a communicator on the field, a middle linebacker, a role of leadership? How much do you think that plays into what you do every day?
It plays big, because just being from a military family, nothing is too big. So I don't try to compare the two, because
definitely different.
This is
Way different.
It's in its own category, but it makes my mindset be easier from a standpoint of when I communicate, I take on a situation like it's life or death, because bad communication can transpire into a bad football play, and practicing, and when we in combat from a practice standpoint, like them guys, like I just always think of it as like, man, what if I was in that situation?
Right.
I bet I get it right then.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to always put myself in hostile situations to make sure that I'm holding myself to that standard, because I'm not in a hostile situation.
Right.
I'm not in a life or death situation and stuff like that, but them guys are training for life and death situations and stuff like that. So,
Well, I got to meet your pops at training camp, so tell him I said thank you. I appreciate it.
Baby.
That was really good. And to hear the story about his pops coming back from war and showing up to his practice, and it was the first padded practice, and he looks up and his pops is there. Like, I mean, he's telling the story. I'm not going to lie. I got to chill through my body while he's telling the story. All right. And so the know that I was able to meet his pops and his mom at training camp, got to shake their hands. And you hear what I said. Matter of fact, to Ashton and E-Rob, hey, tell your pops, thank you for me. Right. Just because, again, that's so important. I really, when I was coming up in Cali and living in Fresno, like I always respected the military. I always, Memorial Day, 4th of July, Veterans Day, showed love, but didn't really understand the real value, I don't think, until I got to Central Texas. And I met so many current military members, veterans, right? Heard so many stories, and, Fort Hood was right there. And so we used to always lean into Fort Hood. So I really got familiar with all the goings on with the military and became friends with so many. And so the value and the meaning to me really grew. And it's something to me now that, I'll never forget. So anytime these days come up, and like I say it all the time, I hate that it's exclusive with just these days, but definitely want to make sure that, the real reason why I didn't do radio shows on Tuesday wasn't because, well, I was off and it was a great day to hang out and have a good time. No, there was a reason for that. And that was the ultimate sacrifice that, veterans, families. I always want to mention the families, because the families are without their loved ones, while, these brave men and women are out there fighting for our freedom. So definitely never want to forget the families either. But veterans mean so much. Obviously, the ones that we lost mean a ton as well. And the currents, the active military. Thank you, and thank you some more. So hopefully you appreciated the little salute to service, hearing from Ashton Genty and Landon Roberts. Coming up in segment number 3, we'll hear from you. Calls and texts. We'll close out the show, 707-654-4693. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a couple more sponsors that we have here on the show, and the first one is Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. You need parts for a fast project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics could save your hours on jobs where every detail matters. Their trade master perks like priority shipping, dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use the promo code SHNFL5. That's SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. Supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. I also want to tell you about FanDuel, the title sponsor of the show. With the NBA being back, there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So even if you miss the start of the game or just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. So it keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late, last-second push. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com, sign up, play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Here we go, Raider Nation. This is segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and text draft that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start things off with a call from Torta Lover Raider. I like that. Calling to talk about what the Raiders need to do to try to get this situation that's currently wrong and make it right. Here he is, Torta Lover Raider.
Thank you. Torta Lover Raider here. Just finished your podcast. So what should the Raiders do, right? I'm just going to talk about the offense, what should be done and what will be done. What should be done is Brendan Carroll, he's got to go, offensive line coach. He's got more or less the same pieces that we had last year, and the offensive line is just booty cheeks, like not like it's just ass. Philbin had the same pieces last year, and he made these guys good. I honestly believe you put Philbin back to run this offensive line, and they're going to be decent. A lot of them are hurt, but what can you do? I have zero confidence in Carroll developing a young talent. We have rookies that should be playing. I hear, they need a year. Screw that. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? We're going to lose? Yeah, might as well lose, but they get some NFL experience, so they have that, So yeah, offensive line coach needs to go. Will he go? No. Why? Because that's his son, Pete Carroll's son. Geno Smith should not be playing quarterback for the Raiders. Everybody knows that except for Pete Carroll. He's so loyal to him. He's more loyal to Geno Smith than he is to the Raiders winning games. Think about that. It's infuriating, and that's why Raider Nation is so upset. And the fault is all going on to Chip Kelly, right? Everybody, Chip Kelly needs to be fired. Chip Kelly did not forget how to run offenses. Like, he just didn't. I'm sorry. You say the name Chip Kelly, and what do people think? Great offensive mind. Great offensive mind, right? He didn't come into the Raiders this season getting paid $6 million. Like, forget all of that. The reason he can't do what he needs to do is because he doesn't have a quarterback. He doesn't have a good offensive line. The offensive line looks lost. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, what they should be doing. And Geno is just like, he's not it. So you can be this great offensive mind, but if you don't have the weapons to do what you need to be done, like, it's just not going to happen. We used to get mad at Derek Carr because he would hang on to the ball for however long, right? Geno Smith, oh my God. Even my daughter that's free is like, throw the ball, Geno. I'm like, yeah, baby, throw the ball, Geno, right? So he just doesn't have the weapons. The offensive line's not good. But what I like about Aaron Rodgers, I hate him, don't like him, is that he throws the ball before the receivers ever open. And I feel that that's what we need in a quarterback, is to throw the ball before the play even develops. Geno waits for the guy to get open, gets covered, gets open again, gets covered again, then, oh crap, I'm going to get hit right now, let me just throw the ball away. So that's my time. Torta, I love her forever. See ya.
Fantastic name, man. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. Brendan Carroll, offensive line coach. Tough decisions might have to be made about him. I mean, that's the reality of it. Geno Smith, tough decisions could be made based off of him, but he has an $18.5 million dead cap if they move on after this season. After next season, 0 dead cap. So you want to see a quarterback throw with anticipation. That'd be ideal if you can get that guy. Problem is, Geno was handpicked to be the guy, and clearly he's not the guy from what we've seen. Now, it's hard to judge him on what he's going to do the rest of the way because we know the offensive line is compromised. We know there's going to be some younger players in there like Jack Besh and Daniel Thornton, or Dante Thornton Jr., excuse me. And so you just really don't know what to expect from this offense moving forward the rest of the way. It's going to be tough sledding, but I could see the Raiders making some drastic moves. I'm interested to see how far in the future Geno is in their plans. That's going to be a big question. And like you mentioned, Brendan Carroll, the offensive line coach, that's going to be a tough decision that Pete Carroll may have to make, right? It might decide him sticking around or not sticking around. And we'll see sooner rather than later. But thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Union Raider in Vegas. Good morning, Q. Union Raider in Vegas. I was trying to think about this coming off season and the possibilities. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how important it's going to be for SpyTech and the front office to really start putting some good drafts together. With a lack of success and stability with our franchise, it's going to be hard to get anybody that's truly going to help our team in free agency. We're going to have to grossly overpay veterans to come to our team, but at that point, they're not going to come here to win. They're coming for the biggest payday. Hopefully, we can evaluate a lot of younger players the rest of the season and start to build to the draft. And with that said, we don't have the head coach for the task. Here's to hopefully finding some good luck and head it our way. Get things right. One love. Go Raiders. That's Union Raider in Vegas. Thanks so much for the text. Appreciate you. And, honestly, I don't think that the Raiders are severely overpaying for free agents these days. I really don't. I don't think John Spytek is going to do that. Now, they have a ton of salary cap space in 2026, but it's been a while since they've just severely overpaid a guy to come in free agency. They used to have to do that all the time, and they were guys at the back end of their careers, and they really weren't worth the salt, and they were just getting massive contracts because, they didn't want to play there. But people want to be in Vegas. So I don't think that that's going to be the big issue, but they do need to put together some really good drafts, like you mentioned, because, again, you don't want to build your team through free agency. You want to be able to build it through the draft and then complement it with some players in free agency. Some, if you need a big-time defensive tackle like they tried to do with Christian Wilkins, great, right? But you have the homegrown edge rushers, or you have some homegrown corners, and now you're trying to get a big-time free agent safety, or whatever the case may be, right? Maybe a linebacker. You see how much money they spent in free agency this year. It wasn't much. They're obviously going to do a lot more next year. We'll see what it all looks like. But, that's I don't think the problem will be getting free agents and having to overpay them. I don't think that the Raiders have that issue anymore. But thanks so much for the text. Appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Army Raider. He's calling after hearing the show about the Raiders. If the Raiders got it wrong, it was a couple days ago, and he's celebrating his birthday and Veterans Day at the same time with a couple days off back-to-back. So here's Army Raider. Thank you for your service.
What's up, Q? It's your boy, Army Raider. Just listening to your podcast about if the Raiders got it wrong, and kind of had some thoughts of my own. Sitting here, day off, celebrating my birthday today, and then got Veterans Day tomorrow, so it's 2 days in a row of celebration. But my biggest concern has been what it was since the beginning is Pete Carroll was let go in Seattle for, basically they said that they thought the game passed him by, if you read everything, and they thought that he was too stubborn to adapt. And if you see what he's doing now, it kind of looks like he's doing the same thing, where it's just over and over and over, trying all this stuff that's just flat out not working. So that's one big concern for me, and it's exacerbated by the fact that if you look, the Raiders, we look worse this year than we did last year under AP with, Chip and Pete, and, the only one of the defense still playing pretty well. So, Patrick Graham's the only one who's really pulling his weight. And then if you look, the other part that exacerbates it is Seattle, the further it gets away from Pete Carroll and into Mike McDonald, is just flat out playing better. They're getting better and better. They might be the best team in the NFC right now. Mike McDonald took over Pete Carroll's roster and had way better success than Pete did. If we look at a lot of Pete's big success that everyone goes back to, that was over a decade ago now. So that's a concern. The other thing is, I really don't want to fire someone again after a year, but if you are going to get a quarterback and you're going to try to find that franchise quarterback, you probably never should have hired him in the first place, knowing that you're going to get at max 3 years out of him due to his age and everything. So you're going to get this young quarterback that you want to sit behind Geno or whoever for a year, and then he's going to have to learn a new system in a year or two. So I don't know if you need an up-and-comer, retread, as you said, whatever. You just need to get someone who, A, you think will be successful, B, someone who's got a sharp offensive mind, and C, someone who can be here a while, not someone in their 70s. You're going to need someone for your quarterback and coach to grow with. Everyone want to say, Ben Johnson. Well, Ben Johnson was pretty damn good up in Chicago. Caleb Williams looks a hell of a lot better with Ben Johnson than he did before. So that's just kind of my 2 cents. Anyways, hope you're having a wonderful day. God bless everybody. Army Raider out.
There's Army Raiders calling again. As I mentioned, thank you so much for the call. Thank you for your service. We definitely appreciate you. And, the biggest issue and the big question Can you grab a young quarterback and then have your coach removed a year or so afterwards, right? And look, I see what the Giants just did with Brian Daboll after they drafted Jackson Dart. And to me, if you have any thoughts of that, if you're going to go draft a quarterback and you're thinking, well, this coach is going to have to win a certain amount of games, it's got to look a certain way for him to keep his job, you might as well just move on from him. Because I feel like now that what the Giants have done is set Jackson Dart up for failure. Now he's already learning one system. Now he's gonna have to learn a new system. And I know Mike Kafka's there right now as the interim, and that's still his system. But are they going to keep him on next year? Probably not, right? And so then that's going to be a second system in 2 years, and he's a rookie. So that's if you're thinking about drafting a quarterback early, and then you're thinking about you might have to move on from your head coach, you might as well go ahead and move on from your head coach. And try to marry the new quarterback and the head coach at the same time, so they're all on the same timeline and on the same page. But thanks so much for that call, Devin. Appreciate you. And like I said, thank you so much for your service. Just got time for a couple more. This text is a pretty lengthy one from Fletcher in the 603. He says, hey, Q. Fletcher from the 603. Been a while, but wanted to add my thoughts on this train wreck of a team. First, I hated the Pete Carroll hire. The Seahawks saw that he was done, and we go and hire him. Second, Geno Smith is the same guy that the Jets drafted after he threw a tantrum, not going in the first round. All he does is sulk. He's a backup quarterback, and it's all he's ever been. Yes, he made a Pro Bowl. Every average quarterback that accepts the invitation makes that game nowadays. Third, fans need to chill on the play calling and Genty's carry. This O-line is horrible. We literally don't have one player that doesn't get pushed 3 or 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And finally, can we stop the nonsense of talking about not drafting a quarterback in the first round? Prime example, the Bears and the Patriots. Both teams had horrible O-lines, and they were in a draft position to get a quarterback. What followed the quarterback was a good coach. Maybe other than the Titans, the Raiders are the worst team in the NFL, and the Titans will probably play better down the stretch. Yes, the Raiders need O-line, a lot of other things, but you improve those spots, and this team does what it always does. They win an extra game or two, maybe two, and they're straight out of position to draft a quarterback. With no quarterback comes no head coach. Keep doing what you're doing, Q. Go Raiders. That's Fletcher in the 603. It's a lot there to unpack. Geno hasn't proved to be him. Pete Carroll hasn't proved to be able to be him either as a head coach. So I guess that can answer those really quickly. I still think the play calling, I don't care if the offensive line is bad or not. Every team in the league's offensive line is not great, and they find a way to get it done, and they find a way to run the ball. And Genty's not being used the way that I think he should be. And when he does have success, they go away from him. So I think that is not good play calling, and that just, to me, says Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll aren't on the same page. Again, going back to the quarterback position in the first round, I'm not saying at all don't draft him in the first round. I'm just saying make sure you get your guy. That's all I'm saying. It's so simple, but I feel like it gets twisted every single time I say it. Get your guy. If he's your guy, go get him. If you have to trade up to go get him and you really like him and think that this is who you're going to build your team around, great. But if you're questionable about a guy, that's all I'm saying. If you're not sure about him, you're on the fence with him, with as much as you have, as many holes as you have, it's okay to get the best player available. It's okay to go get the best offensive lineman, the best corner, or whatever the case may be. I don't know where the Raiders are going to pick. Hell, they might pick number 1 overall, and then they'll be in position to pick anyone that they want. And then nothing I'm saying matters. But if you're not in position and you're not willing to trade up and go get your guy, go target a certain guy, don't just get any guy. Don't just get a guy because, well, we need a quarterback, right? That can't be the mentality. You have to have a plan. This is the quarterback, and this is why. I'm good with that. It's just like the Giants. What the Giants did, they went and got Abdul Carter. They didn't see a quarterback that was a top 3 pick. But they went and got Abdul Carter, then they traded back into the back end of round 1 and got Jackson Dart. That looked pretty good. Pretty good decision. If the Raiders want to go in that approach, that's fine too. I'm just saying don't force the issue. Don't go draft Kenny Pickett because you need a quarterback. And he played, in the same stadium as you, like Pittsburgh did. Because now Kenny Pickett's on team number 4 in just a handful of years. So that's all I'm saying, because his team needs to build. That's simply it. Anyway, thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. We'll close out with a call from ABA Ivan Davis, calling to talk about Veterans Day, talks about his pops and how special he was and everything he and his fellow teammates went through. Here he is, ABA Ivan Davis.
Hey, what's up, Q? This is ABA Ivan Davis. It's Veterans Day. Shout out to the veterans, especially the Marines. My dad served in the Marines. And he was a marksman. Expert shot, 99 out of 100. The story from my uncles told me that all the boys could shoot guns, but my dad was gifted. My grandfather only took him when it came time for hunting for food. And trust me when I say my uncles can shoot. They can sit in cans and ping, 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 ping. But my dad was special. My dad actually wouldn't touch a gun after he got his Marine. He said he was too dangerous with one. But anyway, He also served in the war, which was Vietnam. He was on a ship. He didn't fight. He was on a ship. Personally, I think that's a little, I think it was racist. I'm happy they did that. Okay, because, how do you, 99 out of 100, and you don't put him on somebody like that, you don't put him on the front lines. But again, I'm glad they didn't do that. That was terrible what those guys went through out there. Okay, but, anyway, he was on a ship. And so, that's the ultimate sacrifice, especially if you fought in a war. It's unbelievable what those guys go through. So I just wanted to share that. Go Raiders.
ABA, thanks for the call. Great way to close out the show. And yeah, man, appreciate you. Shout out to your pops, man. Thank you for his service. That's fantastic. Everything that he did, him and his fellow Marines or shipmen, they sounded like they were pretty awesome. And we're really good at what they did. And obviously everyone was really good at what they did because they protected us and gave us these freedoms for guys like me to be able to do shows like this on the daily. Right. So, the ones that gave the ultimate sacrifice, the families that gave the ultimate sacrifice, we can never thank them enough. But thanks so much for the call. Really good stuff. Appreciate that. Got a text from TM Jones. We'll get in coming up. If not tomorrow, we'll get that in on Friday to close out the week. We've got the crossover edition. So Marcus Mosher from Locked On Cowboys will join the show tomorrow. We'll talk about storylines. We'll talk about matchups, and we'll talk about keys to victory for both teams. So that'll come up tomorrow. Of course, we'll have more news and notes as well. You know how we roll. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.